What's up, everybody? So if you don't know already, Palworld is a brand new game, launched about January 19th, which was about a week ago at the time I wrote this, and their launch was pretty crazy. They sold over 2 million copies in the first 4 hours. The momentum slowed down a little bit, not by a whole lot, because in the first 6 days, Palworld sold over 8 million units. Now those figures include Game Pass and Steam numbers, but the Steam chart numbers speak for themselves. Over 2 million concurrent players is the all-time peak. That's higher than games like Counter-Strike 2, Dota 2, Elden Ring, even Baldur's Gate 3 it beat out. PUBG Battlegrounds is still the only game that has a higher concurrent player count, but Palworld had less than 3% of the budget of these other games. Now I want to talk about budgets a little bit later, but for now, it's a little cold out here. Let's go inside to talk about Palworld. So if you don't know by now, Palworld has been described as Pokemon with guns. However, I tend to call it more Arc plus Pokemon. You see, I prefer this because the core gameplay loop of Palworld is nothing like Pokemon. There's no gym leaders, there's no trainers to battle through. There's also no real main story. Now, there are little pieces of lore you can pick up throughout the world in the form of journals, but I haven't really read through many of those because the main point of the game is the survival base building aspects and working your way up from an old bow and basic wooden structures, all the way up to eventual assault rifles, mounting machine guns, and steel or stone structures. Now, the thing that makes Palworld unique is the addition of the pals. That's what they call their Pokemon. Not only do the pals follow and fight alongside you like Pokemon, but like I said, they also assist you in the crafting, collecting of materials. There are specific pals that even drop their own items. The lamb balls, predictably based off of lambs, drop wool periodically. Then there's this little cat called the Mao that apparently digs up gold, like actual gold coins that you can actually go to spend at wandering merchants around the map. Whenever I see this thing, all I can think of is the Nicolas Cage movie Pig, in which he hunts people down for stealing his truffle pig. I don't know why, that's just what I thought of. I think Palworld's success lies in the overall simplicity of this gameplay loop. The fact that it's easy to engage with, it's fun to move up, it's satisfying, and it runs really well on a variety of hardware. Recommended specs on Steam say minimum requirements of 2070 Super for graphics card, but I've seen people on much less running the game perfectly fine at low settings, so your mileage may vary on that front. So in this video, I wanted to talk about Palworld as well as some other games that came out mainly in 2023, even though Palworld is technically 2024. I just want to talk about what these games mean for the gaming industry as a whole going forward, because I think they say a lot actually. But we're starting with Palworld, which initially got announced about 2 years ago in the form of a trailer. Like a lot of trailers, it showed off a lot of features that aren't present in the final game. I believe a lot of these may be due to the fact that the game was originally conceived in Unity, as their other games have been made. They ended up switching to Unreal because they thought it would be better to handle the large open world and the large number of more original assets that this game is using. So I think a lot of the features shown off in the trailer may not be possible or may not be feasible in Unreal Engine. We're going to get back to Unreal and Epic Games in general later in the video. Alright, we've already talked about Palworld's crazy success. Now I want to talk about what got Pocket Pair Inc., the people who made Palworld. I want to talk about what got them to Palworld. Their first game that came out November 20th, 2018, my dad's birthday by the way, was kind of a combination game. Combines elements of deck builders, dungeon crawlers, idle battlers. It's tough to nail down. It was a relatively small budget game, so the graphics, even for the time period, are nothing to write home about. By today's standards, it has an almost mobile game aesthetic. I think it looks a lot like Warcraft Classic, but that's just me. The game didn't really make much of a splash in the gaming industry and went mostly unnoticed. Racked a peak concurrent player count of about 2,000, but it was Pocket Pair Inc.'s first fully published game on Steam, and it was self-developed and self-published. So it kind of gave them a little bit of a test drive to see what they could do as far as games were concerned, and showed them that they can make a pretty solid game, even if a lot of people don't play it. I think it was this very small success of OverDungeron that ended up giving Pocket Pair Inc. the confidence they needed to start making more games. And their next game was a bit more ambitious with Craftopia. It was their first foray into the open world crafting survival base building genre. The game caught a lot of flack for being very similar to Breath of the Wild, especially in the opening sequence, which is basically a shot-for-shot copy. The only difference really being the map and the fact that Craftopia looks better than Breath of the Wild, but that's not the point. Despite that controversy, Craftopia never got hit with a DMCA or targeted by Nintendo for copyright infringement of any kind. The game also doesn't end up playing very much like Breath of the Wild. The focus in Craftopia obviously is on the crafting, survival, base building aspects, whereas Breath of the Wild obviously is more of a story game with survival crafting aspects added on. And I believe it's because of the main differences in the actual gameplay itself as to why Nintendo never targeted Pocket Pair Inc. Craftopia also didn't reach nearly the numbers that Palworld did. It hit an all-time peak of just over 26,000, and that has dropped to a small but still pretty dedicated fan base of less than 400. But I think all the controversy and media attention definitely ended up working in Pocket Pair's favor, though, because it kind of gave them a place in the public eye so that they wouldn't go unnoticed when they released some other games. Their next game, AI Art Impostor. About 4 years after Craftopia, on November 3rd, 2022, AI Art Impostor is a relatively complicated party game, actually, in which 3 of the 4 players are shown a theme and then are challenged to compete using the built-in AI model in order to generate an image that follows the theme yet conceals it from one player, which is designated as the imposter. Now, after all the images have been generated and shown to all players, the players have to guess who the imposter is. Now, if they guess correct, the imposter is given a chance to guess what the theme is based on the images they've seen. And then if the imposter guesses the correct theme, they win. If he doesn't, the others who guess the imposter win. I think this game is actually really interesting, not because it was extremely popular or anything, but because it does the exact opposite of what a lot of the gaming industry does with AI. See, a lot of the gaming industry sees AI as a boogeyman coming for the wallets of every asset artist, 3D modeler in the business. But Pocket Pair used it as the core gameplay element in AI Art Impostor, which I think is very interesting. The game didn't really go anywhere, but I think it's a very interesting look at how AI can be used to actually play the game rather than making it. And I don't think there's any controversy in that. I just really wanted to emphasize how interesting I think it is that AI Art Impostor uses it for the gameplay, because I think the gameplay is the most important part here, and that's kind of the main point of this video. Also wanted to touch on briefly that Pocket Pair Inc. has another game currently in development, NeverGrave, The Witch and the Curse. It's a 2D action game. Looks to be much like Hollow Knight in gameplay style. However, the main point is that your character has a cursed hat, I guess, that they wield, and a lot of the levels are procedurally generated to be fresh every playthrough. But the game still doesn't even have a release date at the time of me writing this, so I'm just gonna skip over it for now. It's not important to the conversation anyway. And that brings us back up to today with Palworld. Now, Pocket Pair Inc. is based out of Japan, so their 1 billion yen budget translates to roughly about 6.75 million USD, which for context, going back to Baldur's Gate 3, they had a budget of just over $100 million, which is still relatively small for a large game studio such as Larian Studios. But for more context on the higher end, CD Projekt Red, the developers of Cyberpunk 2077, spent over $400 million developing Cyberpunk 2077. Now, that includes all the bug fixing updates, as well as the 2 celebrity actors included, Keanu Reeves and Idris Elba, neither of which could have been cheap to hire. But all that still goes to show just how much Pocket Pair Inc. has achieved with Palworld's success. So 2023 overall was an incredible year for indie developers. And I want to start that by talking about BattleBit Remastered. BattleBit Remastered launched into early access on June 15th, 2023 to massive success, selling almost 2 million copies in the first 14 days on sale. Still not quite to the level of Palworld, but it made a big enough splash in the industry to really get people talking. With BattleBit hitting a peak concurrent player count of almost 100,000 players, it seemed to take over the internet overnight. Suddenly, streamers everywhere who were known for only ever playing one game were suddenly dropping their hardcore realistic shooters for this seemingly very simple, low poly, cartoonish Battlefield Bad Company 2-esque game. I liken it to Battlefield Bad Company 2 because the entire environment, save for, I believe, the pavement and maybe the trees, is destructible, but the entire core gameplay loop is very similar to other Battlefield games, in which you engage in fights, maybe kill a couple players, die yourself, respawn, rinse, and repeat. And I believe one of the main things that really sets BattleBit apart is the massive player count battles. Anything from 16v16, 32v32, 64v64, and even the insanely chaotic 128v128. And the game still runs exceptionally well, even on old hardware and even at these insanely high player counts. No trouble, it runs basically on anything. And I think this is largely due to the insane amount of attention placed on optimization by Sergeant Okidoki and his team. Now, anybody who's played BattleBit will know that it looks and feels a lot like Roblox, and that's mainly because the game was originally developed inside the Roblox game creator. But once Sergeant Okidoki, the Liquid Horse, and Velasquez, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, once they realized the potential of the game, they split it off into their own standalone game in Unity, using their own assets and models, all created by their own dev team, with an insanely high attention to detail, but low complexity on the models. Everything from the reload animations, to the healing animations, to even the grenade throw, are all extremely fluid. Everything down to the magazine release buttons actually works on these guns, but none of that impacts their performance or the simplicity of the core gameplay loop. Now, even though BattleBit showed up on the scene like the Kool-Aid Man, kicking down the walls of Activision and saying, "Oh yeah, I'm here for your profits," the success of BattleBit did drop off relatively quickly. From the all-time peak of close to 100,000, it's down to a small but still respectable 15,000 players today. It's about 5,000 players on a daily average. I think that the overall simplicity of a Battlefield style game like this may have contributed to a lot of people kind of getting burnt out on the game relatively quickly. Now, even though the success of BattleBit dropped off relatively quickly, I think this is where the conversation of what makes a game truly good started. And I think BattleBit showed, in my opinion, started to prove that sometimes only two things actually matter for a game to be good. Number one, you want it to run well on a variety of hardware, so you don't need a modern airplane of a PC to run it, or that it just has to have a good, fun, engaging gameplay loop. And that does not mean hardcore realistic graphics or complicated mechanics. That just means it's fun. And it's this sentiment that fun is really one of the only things that matters to a game's success that, in my opinion, was echoed by another game that came out actually in May before BattleBit, and that game is Only Up. It was created by a solo developer under the name of SCKR Games. Only Up caught a hell of a lot of controversy for being a basic Unreal Engine 5 asset flip, which it is. All of the animations in the game are just off-the-shelf UE5 animations. A large majority of the assets in the game are also just off-the-shelf UE5 animations, or so we thought, as at the end of June 2023, Only Up was completely removed from the Steam store, citing multiple stolen assets. Now, stealing other artists' work and portraying it as your own is a huge problem, not just in the gaming industry, but really in the world as a whole. And Steam was obviously right in taking the game down because of these stolen assets. However, none of that takes away from the enjoyment that people got from it. But what did we learn from the insane amount of hours that were streamed on this game? We learned that even though the game is objectively bad, literally being an Unreal asset flip with minimal effort put in by the developer, it was subjectively some of the most fun streamers and gamers had all year. The simple gameplay loop of climb up some shit, fall down, scream, smash your keyboard, or maybe even your monitor, led to some seriously gut-busting moments that I don't think I will ever forget. And I think this is the only thing that matters in the Only Up story as a whole. It's the enjoyment that people got from playing it, the value that people gleaned from watching other people play it. You see, Only Up was $5 at launch. BattleBit was $15 or $30 if you want to buy the supporter pack. And both of these games provided hundreds, if not thousands of hours of fun, enjoyable gameplay for a lot of people. People like Distortion, the current Only Up speedrun record holder, who literally had his big break into content creation with Only Up. Now, Distortion did have a small but dedicated following of speedrun fans before Only Up, but from June 21st to July 5th, he gained close to 45,000 followers just on Twitch, where he was streaming the speedruns. So while Only Up never really reached the same commercial success as BattleBit, it did just as well, if not better, in the streaming / content space, because in the short time that Only Up was on Steam, it catapulted Distortion 2 literally to the front page of Twitch for a short time. While Only Up itself may not have been real, just a bunch of stolen work slapped together in UE5. The views were, and that really got me thinking. See, after Only Up, it was all quiet on Twitch for a while. The Chads went back to Tarkov, the real gamers went back to CS2, and the Just Chatters went back to yapping. But in October, another solo developer by the name of burst onto the scene, this time taking aim at the survival horror genre. Lethal Company didn't have the immediate smash hit success of the other two games, not reaching its peak playership until December. Lethal Company, unlike the other games, seemed like it took time to convince people, because Lethal Company is not only low poly, but it's also intentionally low res. Now, a lot of that is to try to add to the horror because it is low poly, and if you actually look at the monsters too much, they're not really that scary. But a lot of the fun in Lethal Company comes from playing with your friends. Lethal Company, just like Only Up and BattleBit, has a very simple gameplay loop. You choose a moon, you search for stuff, and if you survive long enough to bring it all to the ship, then after 3 days, each day is just marked by when all players decide to leave the moon, you go off to the company building and sell all the junk you've collected. If you meet the quota goes up, and you rinse repeat the same process. If you fail, all players are put through the disciplinary process, which involves all players, as well as any items they may have purchased throughout the game, getting sucked out into space when they open the airlock on the ship. Now, if all that sounds rather uninteresting to you, I understand, because by itself, it probably would be. But where Lethal Company makes it interesting is in its use of VoIP, or proximity chat. You see, every one of these moons that players land on are infested with monsters, creatures of various types. Some not immediately hostile, some are immediately hostile, some will just kill you. Some, there's certain strategies in order to survive when you do see one of them. This proximity chat is implemented extremely well. Obviously, if you get too far away from your teammates, you won't be able to hear them anymore. Or say if they're a floor below you, their voice might come through muffled. This can lead to some seriously teeth-chattering moments where you may be lost or being chased by a monster, and you call out to a teammate who, to your knowledge, is within shouting distance, but you get no response. And when you get no response, you start asking the questions. Is my teammate also lost? Are they dead? Or have they straight up just abandoned me here? Now, you can try to alleviate a lot of that through the purchase of walkie-talkies, but the walkie-talkies function much like real life ones, in which they must be turned on to work, you must press a button to talk on it, and there's a fair amount of static that comes through the line. So even if you have the walkie-talkies, you may try to talk to your friend and get no response, leaving a whole different set of questions. Is my teammate too stupid to just turn it on? Did their walkie-talkie run out of battery and die? Or are they just straight up dead? See, in my opinion, it's these kinds of moments that really made Lethal Company what it is and allowed it to achieve the success it did. Lethal Company was the third game in less than a year, really only about 7 months, from a small studio that had burst onto the scene with a simple yet engaging gameplay loop, good performance, a cheap price tag, and a stupid amount of fun. Proving, in my opinion, that good gameplay and good performance wins out over graphics and realism any day. So once again, that brings us back to Palworld. We already talked about the smash hit success that they had, but I didn't really touch on the AI conversation around Palworld. Now, I'm not going to go too much into detail about that because Mudahar from Some Ordinary Gamers made an incredible video deep diving into all of the controversy surrounding Palworld and its use of AI. But what I got from watching his video is that AI may have been used as inspiration or an idea / starting place for a lot of the pals as far as the design is concerned. But I don't really see that as a problem because they're just using the tools that are available to them and that are being advertised to them as copyright free or infringement free. See, I think the focus around the AI conversation should be more focused on the people who trained the AI model, in the same way that you wouldn't blame a child for hurting themselves in a gun accident. You would blame the parents for not teaching that child proper gun safety and for not securing that weapon properly. Now, you don't blame Pocket Pair Inc. for using the AI, you blame the person who sold them the use of the AI and most likely told them that, again, everything used in AI was in fair use. Pocket Pair Inc. is just using the tools available to them to create the game they want to with a very limited budget. And with this limited budget, AI is being used to assist the workflow of the 3D artists or modelers. So to kind of conclude the AI conversation here, I don't think Pocket Pair Inc. did anything wrong using the AI. It's on the developers of the AI. If the model was trained on copyrighted content from Nintendo or other artists without permission or license, then again, it's on them to compensate those artists, not Pocket Pair Inc. So getting back to the game itself, aside from the Pokemon, or pals, the game looks and feels fantastic. The lighting is excellent. Everything from the particle effects to torches on the floors or walls to the occasional pals that glow. This fantastic lighting really shows off the highly detailed textures. Everything from the trees, the rocks, the grass, and even the water looks phenomenal. And it's not just the look, everything in the world feels very high quality. The animations feel very smooth and fluid, and there isn't much of that snap to animation effect that you get with a lot of older games or a little bit less optimized games. Even with more complicated animations, such as mounting a pal, because there's many of which you can craft saddles for and ride in-game. The stamina system functions much like the one in Genshin Impact, in which everything you do, including jumping, running, shooting, climbing, even gliding, all takes stamina. That can be pretty frustrating at lower levels, but that problem quickly diminishes as you level up through the game. The inventory system, there's not really much to say about it. It's pretty simple, it works as intended, but it works better than Tears of the Kingdom. All of that comes together to create a really fun game that actually still runs really well and doesn't have too many bugs or issues that really get in the way of the core gameplay loop. Hello? The only problem here is that while the game looks and feels really good to play, it feels very familiar to another game I actually already talked about, but a lot better optimized and with a lot more effort actually put in this time. That game is Only Up. Now hold your pitchforks. Remember, I love Palworld. My friends and I have a dedicated server that runs persistently. We have about 3 or 4 clans at this point, each of them being pretty much full at their max player count per clan of 4 people. But no matter how much I love playing Palworld, I still really see the game for what it is. The game's not entirely made from scratch, not in the way Unity forces developers to do almost all of the heavy lifting. But I don't really see this as a problem. I see it more as proof of what UE5 provides for developers when handled properly. See, most of the animations in the game at their core are just off-the-shelf Unreal 5 animations, just like Only Up, albeit with much more attention placed on optimization and tweaking them to really suit the game itself. Even those phenomenal textures and the wonderful lighting is all just built-in effects that UE5 gives to developers. Again, tweaked to suit the specific needs of Palworld. See, I think Palworld really proves how much of a godsend Unreal Engine 5 is for small developers, because it allows them to create AAA quality games with a fraction of the budgets. The only things Pocket Pair had to bring to the table here were a unique take on the survival crafting genre, adding Pokemon, and an original world filled with original, maybe AI-inspired creatures, weapons, character models, and world design tailored to that world they designed. That's literally it. Everything else in the game was built using tools that Unreal 5 provides in-engine, solidifying the hypothesis that I've had for this video. The only things that truly matter to this game are the good performance and the fun and engaging gameplay loop. So while 2023 showed what indie developers are really capable of with modern development tools, I think it also showed us where these big AAA studios are really failing us. Ultra hyped games like Starfield came out with ultra realistic graphics and promises of a massive adventure, but the universe was barren. See, Modern Warfare 3 2023 is just a reskinned version of Modern Warfare 2019, because in 2022, the Modern Warfare 2 tried to reinvent the wheel with new movement and overall gameplay mechanics that players just didn't like. So Activision picked up an old game, threw a fresh coat of paint on it, and is still trying to sell it to us for $70 USD. And that's for the base edition, not to mention whatever legendary or operator editions they have available for well over $100. So why is it that with their massive budgets, these AAA game studios are still failing to make games that people actually enjoy. See, I enjoyed my time playing Starfield, but I had to constantly tell myself to ignore the numerous problems with the game and just focus on the part that kept me entertained, which was space. Space is really cool, okay? Chill out. But that's not what gaming is supposed to be, right? You're not supposed to be coping your way through a game. You're supposed to actually enjoy it. I think it's because these studios are choosing to compromise on gameplay elements, all in the name of ultra-realistic graphics and vast open worlds that, like Starfield, end up being virtually barren if you go and actually explore them. And I think they're doing this because they're just out of touch. And there's a lot of creators on YouTube Shorts and TikTok that make jokes about specifically Blizzard and Activision being like this. They don't truly understand what gamers want from a game. They see the success of a game like Ready or Not, and they get the wrong idea from the success. See, they're missing what truly makes a game like Ready or Not good. And at the risk of sounding like a broken record, it's the good performance and simple and engaging gameplay loop. But I don't think all hope is lost. The monumental success of Palworld at the very beginning of 2024 serves as a beacon to all indie developers that their time has come. With Unreal 5 and other game creation engines that are starting to come out, the gaming industry does not have the same barriers to entry that it once did. I'm focusing a lot on Unreal Engine 5 here, not only because that's what Palworld was made in, but because Epic Games, with its Unreal 5 engine, has finally started to understand what gamers actually want. And I believe they're the first AAA company to really do this. Even though Epic gets a lot of flack for adding Battle Pass and gacha game mechanics to just about any game they get their hands on, players can still have hundreds, if not thousands of hours of fun, engaging gameplay on Fortnite without spending a penny. But then if they choose to spend a little bit of money, they can cosmetically enhance their gameplay. It doesn't affect the core gameplay at all. It just affects the personal enjoyment the player gets out of it and adds a little sprinkle on top. A few tech demos have even come out really showing just how far you can push Unreal Engine 5, more specifically even the Fortnite engine, showing again how much small developers can achieve on a fraction of the budget of these massive gaming studios. Epic Games deserves a bit of recognition for that. So, Epic Games. In this last part, I just want to talk about the fact that I'm really excited to see what 2024 has in store for us gaming-wise. Before streaming, I primarily played large-scale action-adventure RPG games like Assassin's Creed. That's why I was very excited when Cyberpunk came out. But after getting into Escape from Tarkov early last year, I started switching to mostly PvP type games, where the primary enjoyment from those games is by defeating other players. But BattleBit, I think, was the first game to remind me, as well as a lot of my friends who are also Escape from Tarkov players, that winning isn't what's fun. See, we'd be playing BattleBit in a single match for close to an hour, be fighting almost the whole time, all the while your whole team is actually losing by a relatively large margin. Most of the time you won't even notice it until the game is over and the defeat screen flashes. And then it's like, oh wait, we lost? Well, I didn't lose, dude. I had a hell of a lot of fun. I think with Lethal Company, it goes even a step further, because in Lethal Company, sometimes it's more fun to lose and go through the disciplinary process getting sucked out into space. Because in this game, it actually gets kind of boring if you survive too much. And Palworld continues this trend as well. The enjoyment from the game is not in defeating higher level pals or any of the human factions that roam around the map. It's really in the core gameplay loop of progressing technology-wise and building out your team. This idea I've been harping on, that gameplay and performance are the only things that really matter to a game's success, are what I believe set the stage for gaming going into 2024. And finally, given the success of Palworld, as well as these other games, it's only a matter of time until another game comes out, smashing more records, making another crater, and hopefully this time changing the gaming industry for good. Thanks for watching. So I was gonna end the video there, but as I'm recording this, another game, Enshrouded, has come out. Once again, selling over 1 million copies in the first 4 days of its early access, just emphasizing my point that the era of AAA titles giving us nothing but a fresh coat of paint over their aging IPs, and also the era of games as a service is over, and the era of indie games is upon us. Okay, that's it. Hey y'all, thanks for watching the video. If you liked it, please drop a like, a comment if you'd like to. If you're not a commenter, you can stop by my Twitch stream. I should be live hopefully around 4 o'clock the day this video goes up. So if you want to stop by there, stop by in the chat. Let me know what you thought of the video. You know, leave me a follow if you can. If you want to see more of this trash, go ahead and subscribe for more. I had a lot of fun making this video. And if y'all like it, it'll tell me that you, for some reason, want to see more. But yeah, I'll see y'all again soon. Most likely over on Twitch, because these videos take kind of a long time to make. And I get really